seconds!
The WWE Universe was left buzzing with electricity after the unforgettable spectacle that unfolded at WWE Clash in Paris. While fans had expected drama, chaos, and shocking twists from the ongoing Bloodline Civil War saga, what occurred backstage after the main event was even more riveting than what happened inside the ring. Cameras captured a tense, emotional, and chaotic scene involving Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, and a battered Roman Reigns that may very well shift the trajectory of WWE's most compelling storyline. The Paris event had already carried an aura of unpredictability. The build-up to the show was centered on the deep fractures within the Bloodline, Roman Reigns' once untouchable dynasty that had dominated WWE for nearly 4 years. With Solo Sikoa carving out his own path, Tama Tonga inserting himself into the war, and lingering distrust between the Uso brothers, the stage was set for nothing less than carnage. The crowd inside the Accor Arena knew they were witnessing history, but nobody could have predicted the raw emotional fallout that took place once the cameras followed the action backstage. Roman Reigns' brutal encounter in Paris. The match itself was violent, bloody, and unforgiving. Roman Reigns, still clinging to his identity as the tribal chief, faced a relentless wave of attacks from those who once stood by his side. Paris fans were deafening as Jey Uso and Solo Sikoa clashed, each trying to prove who truly deserved to lead the family legacy. Reigns, who has built his empire on intimidation and manipulation, found himself being dragged into the chaos, becoming less of the unstoppable ruler and more of a vulnerable man fighting to survive. By the end of the night, Reigns was left broken, bruised, and humiliated in front of thousands. The final blow, both physically and symbolically, left him sprawled out in the ring, his aura of invincibility shattered once again. Medics and WWE officials swarmed the tribal chief, and for the first time in years, Roman looked powerless. It was an image that shook fans around the world. The backstage aftermath. What happened backstage was even more compelling than the match itself. WWE's cameras followed the chaos as Roman was stretchered through the narrow halls of the Accor Arena, flanked by doctors and security. The tension was palpable. For all his bravado, Reigns appeared fragile, clutching at his ribs and grimacing in pain. The chants from the arena still echoed faintly as the backstage crew scrambled to ensure his safety. Enter Jimmy Uso. Bursting into the scene with urgency, Jimmy's face was etched with concern. Despite everything, the betrayals, the fights, the endless cycle of bloodline drama, he couldn't ignore the sight of his cousin in such a vulnerable state. His voice cracked as he shouted for space, making sure medics had enough room to get Roman stabilized. This was a rare moment of humanity in a saga usually built on violence and betrayal. But Jimmy wasn't alone. Seconds later, Jey Uso appeared, equally shaken. Sweat still clung to his body from the grueling match, and his eyes betrayed a storm of emotions: guilt, anger, sorrow, and confusion. Jey had long struggled with the weight of his relationship with Roman. Once known as the right-hand man, Jey had stood loyally by Roman's side during the tribal chief's reign of dominance. Yet, he was also the same man who had dared to defy Roman, who had proclaimed himself ready to lead the family into a new era. Seeing Roman on a stretcher clearly rattled him. For all their animosity, blood ties run deeper than championship gold. Jey rushed over, brushing past security, demanding updates from the doctors as Jimmy placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. Brothers torn between loyalty and independence. This moment between the Uso brothers carried years of history with it. Fans will remember that Jimmy and Jey once stood as the beating heart of the bloodline. Together, they helped Roman establish dominance, often sacrificing their own opportunities to ensure the tribal chief's reign continued. But betrayal and manipulation from Roman fractured that loyalty. Jey, in particular, suffered under Roman's psychological games, forced to choose between his family and his own self-worth. Now, with Roman lying broken, Jimmy and Jey were left with a choice. Do they embrace compassion for the man who once ruled over them, or do they let the consequences of his tyranny play out? Cameras caught the moment Jimmy whispered urgently to Jey, urging him to keep calm, reminding him that this wasn't the time for grudges. The Paris crowd's roars were still audible, but backstage, the tension was suffocatingly silent. Every second felt like an eternity as Roman groaned in pain, medics working feverishly around him. The future of the Bloodline in question. What makes this scene so significant is what it represents for the larger Bloodline storyline. For years, Roman Reigns has been the sun around which all Bloodline members revolved. His downfall, physical, emotional, and symbolic, raises new questions. Could this be the official end of the tribal chief's dominance? If so, who steps up to fill the void? Jey Uso's emotional reaction indicates he may once again be thrust into the spotlight. Could Jey finally become the leader he has always claimed to be? Or will Jimmy attempt to restore balance between family members? Meanwhile, Solo Sikoa, who has been carving out his reputation as the enforcer-turned-leader, looms in the background, ready to seize the throne at any sign of weakness. Fans are already speculating whether this incident in Paris will serve as the breaking point for Roman's empire. Will the Uso brothers unite once more, perhaps out of guilt or compassion? Or will they allow Roman to fade, finally breaking free from his oppressive shadow? Fan reactions and the global impact social media erupted the moment footage of the backstage scene aired. Clips of Jimmy clutching Jey's arm while Roman lay helpless spread rapidly, with fans dissecting every gesture and every facial expression. Some argued that the Uso brothers' concern was genuine, a reminder that no matter how far rivalries go, family will always be family. Others speculated that it was all part of another manipulative trap, suggesting Roman could exploit their compassion to regain control. The Paris crowd, who had already witnessed a main event that felt like a chapter ripped out of a Greek tragedy, left the arena buzzing with conversations about what they had just seen. For many, the sight of Roman being stretchered out symbolized the official fall of a tyrant. For others, it was the heartbreaking reminder of a man who gave everything to his craft and his family, now left vulnerable at the hands of his own kin. The road ahead. What happens next could redefine WWE storytelling for years to come. With SummerSlam and Survivor Series looming, the chessboard is wide open. Roman's health remains uncertain, and his pride has taken a devastating blow. Jimmy and Jey must decide whether they want to mend the family's broken pieces or let them scatter forever. And then there's Solo Sikoa. While the Paris event focused heavily on Roman's plight and the Uso brothers' reaction, Solo is still in the shadows, building momentum as the heir apparent. If Roman truly fades from the spotlight, Solo could claim leadership, backed by allies like Tama Tonga, who have already shown they're willing to betray blood for power. The Paris Clash wasn't just another pay-per-view. It was a seismic shift in WWE's most gripping saga. The backstage footage of Jimmy and Jey rushing to Roman's side added layers of emotional complexity that no scripted promo could replicate. It was raw, real, and deeply human. In the end, Clash in Paris may be remembered not only for its brutal matches, but for its unforgettable aftermath. A scene where loyalty and betrayal, love and hate, pride and pain all collided in a narrow backstage hallway, as Roman Reigns, once untouchable, was carried away by medics, while his family stood at a crossroads.